pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first item of business is the approval of the minutes, July 12th board meeting. Everybody's had a chance to review. Is there any corrections that anybody like to see made?
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the regular board meetings of July 12th, 2021. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item of business is the approval of the general fund vouchers 78,79,8 through 78,837, and wire transfers 2022 triple lot 1 through 2022 0040.
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the general fund vouchers and the wire transfers as read. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Public comment on agenda items. Anybody have anything they'd like to share? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our new business. A, approval of hires.
Okay, so in notes, we have one new hire, Title I teacher I've listed there.
All right, I will entertain a motion.
I go approve the new hires. Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve our new hire. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business are the approval of the resignations.
So we have one resignation in there, elementary paraprofessional, and she's listed in the resignation notes.
Is there a letter to read, Josh?
There's an email, not in the notes, sorry.
Okay.
I can get it to you, Greg, if you want it.
I got Josh. All right. I am writing to notify you that I will be resigning from my position as para-custodian effective 2 weeks from today. My last day will be February 30th. I know that you are out of the office next week, so I wanted to be able to let you know as soon as I could so that I would give you enough to post the position. Thank you, Nadine Kerr.
I think it was August 30th, right?
July 30th.
Or July, I'm sorry, yeah, July.
I move to approve the resignation.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the resignation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item of business is approval of home-based participation.
Okay, so two families, last year this kind of becoming more common with the couple families that we have homeschooling. So the home-based participation is homeschool. DPI calls it home-based participation. I give you a link to the DPI website. So we have two families that are requesting participation in athletics for the 21-22 school year. So this upcoming school year, the first family, the Munson family, they have 9th grader and an 8th grader, and then the second family, the Garrett family, has one 9th grade student.
Okay, I'll entertain a
I
motion.
move to approve the home-based participation.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the home-based participation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, the next item of business is the approval of the 21-22 return to in-person instruction plan.
Okay, so it's been interesting with some of the stuff that's been communicated from DPI. They had quite a few, they had a lot of turnover at the Department of Public Instruction as well. So, but anyway, with the ESSER money that we received, there's 3 rounds of ESSER money, and that plan I'll get to next. But initially, they communicated that all the ESSER money would have no strings attached. Just districts could do whatever they want with it. And now the strings are starting to come. So all districts across the state have to have a return to in-person instruction plan, and then ESSER fund plan that needs to be board approved, needs to be reviewed every 6 months or within every 6 month period, and then it has to have stakeholder input as well. So the return to in-person, it kind of seems a little silly because we've already been in person. We've already rolled that out, so the kids were in person last year, but that isn't the case for all of the schools across the state. So this is the return to in-person instruction. It just lays out kind of what the plan is for this year, for the 21-22 school year. we took the plan from last year, just copied it, and then made the revisions as far as what we had implemented last year and into summer school, and then also what the plans are going to be for this fall. So, like I said, the purpose of the plan is just to meet the criteria for the Department of Public Instruction, but then also to articulate to the state, all of our families, what we are doing to make sure there's safeguards in place for everybody. The goals, same as last year. Our main goal is obviously to have a safe and secure environment, and our number one priority, after that, then is to make sure that we're here in person. And after going to a lot of the meetings, and things are starting to kind of heat up again as far as the meetings that we're having and what's being communicated. Obviously, you guys see the news. I do really feel fortunate as a parent to be able to say that we were in person all of last year, with that exception of that that little 2-week period for staffing, and it's not because of me and my role. It's not because of our admin team. It's not just because of the teachers, not the board. I mean, it really is. It was a collective effort from every level, all of our teachers, support staff, the board, giving us the autonomy to kind of work through that, the admin with the planning, and then the parents too. I really feel like, even with the exception of that one, mask meeting, I really do feel like our parents, presume positive intent throughout and recognize that we were all trying to just do the best that we had with the information that we had. And I think the main variable that if I had to pick one thing, and I know I've said this to you guys before, as far as why I feel like we have such a strong board, such a strong staff, is because I feel like we're educating our children, not just our students, but there are many of our children connected to the district. So I'll kind of rip through this with our commitments to the district, the safety, the flexibility, and then the in-person instruction. Our goal our plan is to do 5 days a week, like we were doing. We still have, some of the things in place if we have a staffing shortage or if we have to do like a distance learning, we're going to do the same plan as last year, and we'd roll that out the same way. And it probably wouldn't be, it might be a little smoother than last year, but there's always hiccups with all of that. But I'm confident that we'll be continuing to go in person 5 days a week. The masks will remain optional. We implemented that in May. We moved from required to optional. So it's still going to be up to the families if they want to, as well as staff, that we're going to, if people want to wear masks, they'll have that right to wear masks. And then it's our job as a district to make sure no one's feeling ostracized or feeling like they're being, like it's challenging for them to wear the masks. Positive cases, from the very beginning we said, and I jokingly said, and I've joked about this too, that I stopped believing anybody's data as soon as I did my own dissertation, but there is some truth to that. We have made that commitment that we are going to only focus on our numbers. We don't have control of any other variable other than our own numbers, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So we had, when we moved from required to optional with masks, I think we had total of let me say this first. So once we dropped the mask, we didn't see an increase of cases. We didn't have one single case during summer school, and during that last month, we had a couple cases leading up right to it, but it really remained consistent with what we were seeing with the mask too. So I feel like it was a good place. We were in a good place in summer school. A lot of those classes looked very similar to the school year. I mean, some are very, thin classes and you only have a couple kids, but there's other classes where there are more kids and they're eating together and doing activities as well. So it was nice to see that we didn't have any cases. And then contact tracing is going to be another piece that we are no longer planning on doing. We've communicated to Polconi, the contact tracing puts a huge burden on our district. We don't have a full-time nurse, so it really falls on admin and the secretarial staffs in both buildings. And I think we excluded, over 700 total kids last year, and some of those were, like my own daughter got, excluded 3 times, so some of those are repeats. But with that, there were like 7 kids that tested positive from those exclusions, and I think 3 or 4 of those were household members, so you could argue that wasn't due to contact tracing even. So anyway, that's our plan. If someone does test positive, then we will absolutely remove them. I think that, that's common sense, that if someone's sick, they should be out just like any other sickness.
So they have to test positive though, right?
Yeah, or if they fall under the old, pre-COVID rules, if they have a fever, they're out just like like before, where they're out for 24 hours with no, fever-reducing medicine.
Okay, but it doesn't say that.
I think it's in here. Let me keep going. So visitors and meetings, we're going back to normal. We're going to be allowing visitors in the buildings. Face coverings we talked about. Junior Warriors, we're going to keep doing what we were doing last fall. In-person instruction just talks about what the traditional classroom environment looks like. Between models, so all that's going to remain the same. Special ed remains the same. And I'll hit that in just a second. I think that's in here, but if it's not, we did articulate that in the letter too. The one thing is the WIA guidance, we're going to be following whatever WIA does. If the conference implements something, we'd follow that as well. But as far as our hosting activities and in-house stuff, we're going to no longer require or have masks as optional, and spectators will be allowed with no limitations back into the buildings. And we were moving in that direction last year too. I mean, we were starting to loosen up and continue to do that. So we're going to continue with that. Communication timeline. So just so you guys are aware of the timeline, this will, the August 9th, which is today, that we'll have it on today to be board approved for this plan. Then we'll have it on November 8th and then April 11th board meeting too for review. So that.
So somewhere we still have the provision that if something changes, Josh, you can go ahead on the fly and pull the trigger on a different plan.
Yeah, so the very last slide that we articulate that if we may need to make a decision from admin level, we'll do it. If we have time to pull together a board meeting, we'll do that as well. So I know where it was. So we mailed home, or I sent out an email to all families in the parent FAQ, the frequently asked questions, and that articulates that in that as far as what our plan is for.
Right, but if somebody could send their kid to school for a week with them, not really, I mean, unless they test positive. That's the only thing I saw is if they test positive, that's the only exclusion.
Yep, if they test positive, they're excluded, and then, I guess for lack of better terms, the exclusion process is going to look the exact same as pre-COVID. So that was spelled out, and I could certainly add that into this. If you guys,
Yeah, it's the second page
If you guys
of
want,
what they
okay.
gave us. It's the same, like if they were sick before, if they had two of the symptoms, they had to stay home until they were.
Okay, so that's still in?
Yep, so I gave you guys in your folder this, it's paperclip. The second document is just the parent FAQ. So like who should you call if you have any questions regarding, health concerns? Will students be excluded during the 2021-22 year? Individuals who test positive for COVID-19 may return to school after their 10-day quarantine period. So if they test positive, then they're going to be excluded for the 10-day period. A household
But
member,
only if they test positive.
only if they test positive, yep. If they, I'm just trying to look and see where it's in here. Okay, so number 4 on page 2, when should parents and guardians contact the school if their child is exhibiting COVID-19 related symptoms? So then the district will revert back to our past practices regarding all health related issues. Please keep your child home and contact your building's main office if your child is experiencing any of the following symptoms. So the fever for 24 hours, if they're free from vomiting or diarrhea for 24 hours, if they've been diagnosed with strep, 24 to 48 hours, a chronic or severe cough, at home until symptoms improve, the pink eye, and then a child with any of these symptoms, may be sent home. So, does that answer your question, or?
Well, no, I mean, just to make sure that we can just still send somebody home if they are sick.
Just like before, yeah, like if your
It
kid
is
has a
just like
fever, they were sent home if it was over 99.
Well, it said don't send your kids to school, but,
Our kids were sent home.
Yeah, we send
Yeah.
home with those,
Okay.
with those criteria, we would send kids home.
Yeah.
So my only question, Josh, and I emailed this to you, DPI in their recommendation and CDC said busing requires masks.
Yeah.
It's not an option on the buses, and how are we gonna get around that?
So as of right now, the plan is to not have masks on the bus. A meeting with, I talked to our insurance carrier. As far as, I talked to them about the masks and then the exclusion criteria. And I meet with their attorney on Friday next week, so that may change some of this, but he was pretty confident that it wouldn't. So many feel like that the CDC doesn't have that authority to make that decision. We don't have shared transportation services so like in some district, like my previous district is a good example. There are kids on the bus, and then it's also a transit for the city, so you'll have, a mixture sometimes. But we just have our own busing company. So if you guys want to talk through that and make a different decision, I'm certainly open to that. In my own opinion, I don't, common sense, it doesn't make sense to me to have them masked on the bus and then have them come off and then.
when they get to school.
Created a whole new set of problems. I just wondered what it said when the DPI handbook says it's required.
Yeah. I don't know if it says
It does. I looked
DPI
at
or
it today.
CDC.
DPI's new handbook they
Oh.
emailed out today said it's
Okay.
required.
Okay. So many are challenging, or some are challenging that too. So.
I just can't imagine saying you can't get on the bus if you have a mask too. Don't have a mask to a first grader after they've not wearing them all day.
Right.
But that's just a chaos.
So, like I said, I'm going to be with, it's not EMC, it's Tricor's attorney. That's who we met with last year at the beginning of all this to talk through the insurance stuff. And so some of that has changed, especially, is with the exclusionary process and then the mask stuff too. And, everything that I'm hearing is that these are all local level decisions, from masks to mandating vaccines if your district wants to do that. To exclusion, it's all locally decided upon. So as of right now, I mean, the main kind of takeaways is we're going to continue to move forward with almost everything the same way as what we did in May. During summer school, where we stopped contact tracing and then we made masks optional. Just have thoughts on that, or want some changes, or?
No, I am a little bit concerned that it says we're doing it the safest way we possibly can. And I haven't seen any support that says we're doing it this way.
What do you mean?
Like from like WIAA, and I mean, they all recommend doing it different. Everybody hates the mask.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't seem safe. And I can see our parent argument is like, how are you making it safe for my kid to come to school? And even the exclusion thing, that's the big thing. It never says, well, I did say that, I guess, in the parent letter.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that we have to weigh, and ultimately, is why I think it's a local decision, is you weigh you have the safety concerns, which we do have, and then you also have the mental health safety concerns and kind of where everybody's at. Right now, currently, our district, we've had 0 cases.
Right now.
Yeah, currently in the last 7 days at the DHS website, and then we haven't been told about any positive cases since this summer, I guess it would have been. So.
It'll just be interesting to see what happens, I think.
Right, but
Yeah.
then that's another thing too. It's like, how do we take that back? If it does, all of a sudden in the 5th grade class, there's 4 kids that are positive then.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we're going to have to be continually watching and be willing to make that decision if we get to the point where we have to. I definitely I can't definitely not running for a popularity contest. I'm not. But I'd be fine if we got to the point where we saw a huge influx of kids and we're just like, there's a variable in place and we don't know what it is, and we have to, I mean, we're talking about children and staff, and I'd be willing to come to the table and say, look, what do we decide as a board? Right now, my personal opinion, it doesn't make, I don't see it, that it's necessary to wear masks just because of when, I was nervous, when we were in May, I think like all of us, we were all nervous about what variables are in play that are working, the hands, or the masks, the cleaning, the distancing, kind of all of it. And I personally, I think the cleaning has helped. I think the distancing has helped. I don't know about the masks personally.
Yeah, neither me, whether that was lucky or what, we tried it and it worked fine.
Right.
I just so you guys know, my family got it during that time that you're saying nobody did get it, Josh, and it sucked. I was out of work for 3 weeks. It was a bad deal. I think the discussion is whether or not, as you go through something like this, everyone's minds are evolving to get their mind around it. And that being said, we're not done with it yet. This Delta variant, from some of the stuff that I've seen, is like, 7 times more infectious. Well, we're probably going to have to deal with that again. But like I say, as we get our minds around this, and hopefully we can all kind of do it at the same time, I think we have to decide, there's protective measures that we can all take, right? We can wear a mask if we want to. We can get vaccinated if we want to. We can stay home if we want to. In my mind, the question is, and that sucked for me, you guys, it was a bad thing to get. But in my mind is, are we gonna just continue living with this thing? Or are we gonna run from it, right?
Right,
So-
but my thing with the exclusions was like your family can continue to come to school even if you test positive. It went through your whole family.
And I wanted to say two things, just so you don't think I was misleading or trying to misspeak here. I meant we didn't have any student cases. We had no, during summer school. I don't know about like Polk County as a whole, or even I don't know what the hospital rates were, or those numbers. I'm just saying summer school with kids, so.
Yeah.
Is it something where the state could mandate them again, I suppose, as well, like they did
What
last time?
Certainly
could. Evers came out and said he won't be,
Yeah.
because of the Supreme Court hearing. I can say too with confidence that we had kids in this building that were, the exclusionary process, I don't want to say was, I don't know how to word it. It was not error-proof. We would get a case from 3 days back, and we'd have kids in the building for 2 or 3 days, and then some of it seemed silly to me, that we're sending kids home when they've been in the building for 3-4 days, and they clearly have moved around, and so it was far from an error-proof process.
And then also to see that there's not another 15 cases that spurred up from that happened. So that's the stuff you saw, Josh, when you form your opinion that, what's working and what do we need to do and what don't we need to do, so, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that my opinion, the exclusion process didn't, obviously, Mr. Peterson was involved in this, but I just don't think it had a huge impact on keeping kids safe in the building. Because if it would have been a much faster process, and we would have been able to identify kids, but the time frame, especially at the very beginning when people were getting tested, and then there was a lot of lag time between testing and getting results, and then we just had kids in the building. It was almost like, this is a joke. It didn't make any sense how we were identifying the kids in that time frame. So that's where my personal opinion with the contact tracing, I just don't, when you weigh the pros versus the cons, I don't see it from an administrator, and I don't see it from a parent perspective either.
Right, I'm not saying, I'm just worried about the one family. Like, say one kid does test positive, his brothers and sisters can still come to school until they have symptoms. It went through your whole family, right?
Well,
and it's not like you could stop it.
no.
That's the only thing I'm concerned about, is like brothers and sisters.
So you're saying, Ryan, that if somebody in the family has it, you just assume they stay home for 10 days?
Well, in summer school it was even that, right? If
Summer school, we were planning not to, but it didn't end up, we didn't have any cases.
Right, but
We didn't have
if,
any cases that required us to contact trace in the summer.
right,
So,
I would
you're
think
not
common
talking-
sense would have them stay home, but you know, that
Right,
isn't
but-
always around.
some people have to go to work, they're gonna send their kids to school.
Yeah.
You know, and then household members, I mean, you're excluding kids for almost 30 days. I mean, you're
Yeah, from the original contact tracing.
doing 10 days and from the positive case, then their 14-day period starts once the 10-day period of the initial positive case starts. So, I mean, you're 24 days out in a lot of cases. But,
Well, I think we're gonna have to deal with this when it sweeps through. It's kinda going through the southern states already. It'd be interesting to see some of those states that do remain open, how that flushes through their communities. I wish there was an avenue or a conduit where we can actually kind of put our ear to the wall and kind of see how it plays out, to know how it's gonna play out once it does get here,
yeah.
you know?
And we're certainly open to change. I mean, if you guys want to change this up, I mean, you guys are ultimately the stamp of approval. I don't, you know, unfortunately, there's no handbook for this, and even like in May, I thought for sure you were starting to see cases, you know, right before we removed that, and in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, we're gonna have some positive cases, and it's gonna be a coincidence, you know, unfortunately, it can coincide with the masks, you know, being optional, but, you know, you run the risk of that type of stuff too. And ultimately, you know, we just make the best decision that we think at the time, so.
No, I kinda like having the power or the authority to make decisions for my own kids. If I think it gets too scary, as a parent, I can keep my kids home for a stint if it gets too crazy. You know what I mean? We never had that power before. We were dictated to, so that's one of the, I like the stance that we're taking.
I like the no contract tracing, I think we're fine with that. I get the family issue though. All of a sudden, if somebody's really has it and they're home with that person, they can still come to
They're
school the next day.
Probably gonna get it, is all I'm saying. But they can still come to school as long as they don't have symptoms. Right?
As of right now, that sounds like that's what we're doing, Josh, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they have symptoms, then they have to, they can't come back until those symptoms are going, or with a negative, they have to go get tested and provide a negative test for us.
So I guess that we would really have to watch that is what I would ask. If we think somebody is a sibling and we think they have the two symptoms, we have to be really adamant with that they need to go home. I know that puts more pressure on the teachers to be watching for that. Because you're not gonna share who's, will the whole staff know Carly has COVID? So will the whole staff know to be watching Sierra? Will they know that one child is sick from a family? If that was my family?
Elementary will look a little different than junior, senior high. Elementary will just be the classroom teacher. Junior, senior high, there will be more individuals that are aware
Right,
that she's,
that makes sense, so.
test positive, or you know, that there's a household
Right.
member positive.
Or you probably won't send her until you have a negative test.
I wouldn't, yeah, I probably wouldn't send it until they're negative.
Would we maybe encourage parents to keep their family home if it's in the household? I know that's what we did. We just
That's
kept all the
fine.
kids home and enjoyed our month of.
It is
Yeah.
true what you said, there will be families who send their kids.
They're gonna,
If-
it happens
unless
all the
they're
time.
told.
They do a job.
Unless they're told
I
they
remember
can't.
Mrs. Pickard when our kids were little. Stop sending your kids to school. You know?
That had nothing to do with sicknesses, no.
It's just a running nose,
No,
it's
but
okay.
You know, she's right. Right.
Well, what do you guys want to do? Do we want to
I don't know how
revisit
you,
the
I don't know
household?
how you word it, I guess.
You know, I think that there's two different contexts too. You know, the last time it went through, and this is just what I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but it sounds like this next variant is like twice or 7 times more catchy,
Yep.
I guess. So, you know, if that's the case, it's gonna flush through the households like that if it catches in there, right? But the last time, a number of households had it and only 1 or 2 people
Were sick,
contracted
or-
it.
yeah.
My house is that, my kids are all, I don't know, it's a spit fest, I think. So there's no way we could get away with not getting sick, but you know, the circumstances are different. You know, from the Delta to what we had go through the first time, so I don't know how we wanna handle that.
The hard thing is you would have to require a negative test for every day for 10 days. You know what I'm saying? They could test negative and then the
Wasn't there
next
something
day.
after 10 days, if they tested negative, they could return back?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of different.
Well, summer school, it was a different deal, right? If you yourself, if one kid had it, his family members had to be excluded for a certain number of days with the negative test, right?
For summer school.
Well,
Yeah, wasn't there something?
what's the
with
chart
summer
from last year, that if it was a
We had-
sibling?
There was a change from the CDC, like right before summer school hit, and then WIA, is that what you're talking, where it went from 10 days to 7 days?
Well, yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Okay.
But I thought we had something
was
for
like in
summer
the middle
school in
of-
place within family.
It goes in March or something, even, yeah.
Yeah, so they moved it from, and honestly, that's part of the, I mean, difficult part of this is it's gotten so political, and then a lot of these numbers seem, from my perspective, seem arbitrarily picked. You know, the 14-day, then they went to the 10-day, and then it was a 7-day with no symptoms. And obviously they were, you know, building the plane while they were flying too. So at the very end of last year, it was in place that you could, if you were a household member and you didn't exhibit any symptoms, you could return after 7 days with a negative test. But the WIA it remained in place the 10 days in order to compete. I think that's maybe what you're thinking.
I don't know, I thought we had something in place for family members in summer school. If there was a positive test, but I don't know, we never had one, so.
What do you guys want to do with household members? Because we certainly could implement household members are excluded as well, and then we have to decide for how long and what that criteria is. So we could do, you know, they'd be excluded for the 7 days with no symptoms and then could return, or the original language, you know, your 14-day quarantine period begins after their 10-day, the siblings' 10-day quarantine period. It's a huge burden on families and,
Yeah,
you know,
It was
but
never
then
even-
also you have the health risk, so.
It was never even really like that before though, right? If someone was excluded, those kids could still go to school. If they,
Siblings?
yeah,
No, we had to get a negative test.
No.
if they were positive though, right? But if it was just
No,
in the group,
Siblings had to go home too.
They were either out for 14 days, or if they were symptom-free during that, they could return after 10 days.
okay,
But even with just symptoms, the siblings would go home too, this past year.
okay.
But the siblings' quarantine period or exclusionary period didn't
Was
begin until
longer, right.
the initial person that tested positive was completed their exclusionary or quarantine period.
We maybe didn't do it
It
right.
was similar to a Dr. Seuss riddle.
Thanks, Skip.
What?
So how many, you know, my family's, I've got a number of kids, but most families are 1 and 2 kid families, I suppose, right? So it wouldn't be that impactful to tell them that stay.
I'm not sure off the top of my head how many, you know, what the number average is, but
well, and I don't have elementary kids either, so, I mean, those are the ones that can't get shot now. And, I mean, I'm just looking at what if this argument comes up. If a parent says, you're not really making this a safe environment.
If you're letting siblings come.
Yeah,
with
if you're
something
letting,
sick.
until they get a negative, or a positive test. I mean, they could be sending their kid to school sick, and they know it, and they just gotta go to work that day.
and I gotta believe that happened last year. I mean, I think
I do too.
but but valid, you know, it's a valid argument.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about it in my family, but
Enough.
If you're going to exclude family members, what about a older sibling, or younger sibling who's not vaccinated comes down with it, and you have an older sibling in the house that is vaccinated? Are you gonna exclude them as well, if they've got the vaccination?
I mean, what's been being communicated now is it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, everybody can transmit.
Yeah.
So I'm fearful to start identifying, you know, putting in place
The vaccine
criteria
thing.
of vaccinated versus unvaccinated. I think that's, you know, you run the risk of discriminating,
Right.
you know, for employees or for students, and I think because, the CDC is saying, which could change tomorrow, but they're saying that it doesn't matter, vaccinated, unvaccinated, you're prone or capable of transmitting the virus. But, the household number's a valid argument or a valid point. Go ahead, Chris.
Maybe an idea, if we exclude household members, maybe, we could, if we're kind of able to be more flexible with our criteria, instead of saying, the 10 days plus the 10 more days, perhaps, it could just be the 10-day period if they remain symptom-free, or, we could maybe work on that a little bit, get some guidance. I mean, it's just an idea, a little bit more of a happy medium, just a thought. Sounds like what we're wrestling with.
How about if I'm just throwing things out to an idea that came to my mind was, if the kids came to school symptom-free, right? If we could just assure that they were symptom-free, could we have the teachers go around the room in the morning with a thermometer thing, just take temperatures of the kids every day?
No.
No?
That's just I don't like putting that
I
on
don't see
teachers.
kids coming symptom-free every day.
Well, that's
Even
what I
during
mean,
a
that's what I'm
non-pandemic.
saying.
Right.
I mean, if we knew kids were gonna come symptom-free, we wouldn't really even have to have this discussion, would we?
No, and the thermometer thing, we tossed around at the beginning, not really at the board level, but at mid level, and those darn thermometers are not error-free either. I mean, especially the ones that the DPI provided. I mean, I could range from 105 to 75, depending on how far away you are. So some of the better ones, the ear ones, the ones that you're physically putting, in the kids' ears, those are better. Or those are accurate, but the forehead ones that we were provided weren't. But so I mean, that'd be a lot of thermometers, a lot of time away from just time in general. But
I think we just gotta see how it goes.
Yeah.
yeah. And I think so too. I think anybody, this may be a plan that we'll be revisiting immediately and saying that's not the right plan.
Which we can.
Yeah, which we can. But I do think if you guys don't, if you have hesitancy with the household members, I think we should make sure that we address that today. Do we
I
want
don't
to?
personally. I mean, I don't care. I'm looking at what other people are going to argue, and they're going to say you're not keeping my kids safe by sending COVID positive kids to school. I mean, even if they're not a test.
Siblings of COVID positive, yeah. I don't know how many times we could make sure your kids are healthy, not sick when you send them to
Right,
school.
they're going to send their kids to school.
Err on the caution side, yeah.
This is COVID-19 times, man.
And I guess I would really say, talk to the lawyers about the bus thing, because everything I read today
Yeah.
said that it's required.
As
Not that I
long
like
as-
it whatsoever, I just want to make sure we're covered.
Insurance-wise, DPI, and
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we're not going to lose funding.
Right.
Well, we could just cross out bus and put carriage on there, right?
Yeah, so that's just a double check, like,
Yeah, and
with
then
the,
I'll know that for sure from our insurance carrier on Friday.
and I can send you where the DPI said it too.
I don't know, I think we go this route, and if we have to switch gears, we can do
Yeah.
that readily.
Yeah, and if it's an impact, it's an impact, but hopefully it's not.
So are you guys saying leave as is, or do you want to make some revisions?
That's what I'm saying.
Leave it
Yeah.
as,
Okay. All right, well, if it's a good plan or not in the fall.
I'll know quickly. Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, so this requires board approval, and the interesting thing too is, you said it, Ryan, but I do think that's gonna be happening. What was communicated to me was the return to in-person instruction and then the ESSER fund money. Those are the two that are definitely tied together, so the ESSER money is all federally, federal funding. And these have to be public, they have to be on the website, and then the ESSER fund money does, the ESSER
And that's why I
fund
think the
plan.
transportation thing comes in, because it's a requirement on federal funding that any public transportation is masked.
Public transit.
That's the ESSER fund saying that.
They even listed school buses in the thing
Yes.
that I read.
It
Did that
specifically
came out
lists-
today?
It
No.
specifically listed school buses in the CDC and the DPI manual that read today.
Okay.
And that's the federal funding, because that's still a requirement across the US,
Sure.
public transportation.
Well, I mean, between now and September 1. If we receive, different guidance, I'll obviously communicate with you guys, and if we need to do a special board meeting, we'll certainly do that. We have the annual meeting as well.
Would be
So.
awful, but
What's that?
it wouldn't be easy at all to do,
No.
but I just don't wanna lose any funding
Yeah.
and get cited for anything.
Yep.
Well, the kids you can get used to carrying their masks with them and putting them on when they need to and when they don't need to, right?
But you're gonna tell a second grader he can't get on the bus because he doesn't have a mask on?
Well, I'm sure we'll have masks on the
Right,
bus.
but I'm,
for 'em,
every day, I mean, hopefully it doesn't come to that, but that would create some massive chaos with elementary specifically.
Well, we can do anything, I mean, we showed
Right.
that last year.
Yeah,
Right.
I think
But
it'd
it
be a lot more.
doesn't make a lot of
challenging.
sense to have them ride the bus.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, it doesn't make sense,
Definitely
but it
more
doesn't change
challenging
the
But
when you
wording.
do it in the
I'm
building
just
and then
worried
on the
about
bus.
funding.
Right, so yeah,
Yep.
I approve with that, double check the bus thing with it.
With the
DPI and the
insurance.
lawyers and insurance.
Yeah.
All right, I'll entertain is that a motion then, Nettie?
Yeah, I move to approve with the busing double checked, that we're okay with that.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second to approve our return to in-person instruction plan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of the ESSER fund plan.
Present button. Do you guys see the?
It's a Google Doc, it doesn't have a present.
We have it in our,
Oh, yeah, what am I talking?
we have it in our book.
Okay.
You could zoom in.
All right, so the ESSER fund plan. So here's the plan, just put together. I created a notice for it too, so we'll be putting a notice out. So the ESSER 1, which was called CARES money, and then the ESSER 2, and then the ESSER 3. So there's 3 rounds of federally COVID relief money. The allocation amount for the CARES money was $80,267. ESSER 2 was $335,681, and then the ESSER 3 is to be determined yet. So that's this this section tells a different amount. March 20th is when March 2020 is when the year of allocation, and then the last expiration date is the date that we have to spend each one. We've already spent the ESSER 1 or the CARES money, and then the ESSER 2 money needs to be spent by the September of 2023, and then ESSER 3 needs to be spent by September of 2024. Okay, so then here are the public input meetings. I just tied them to the board meetings. So obviously August 9th is today, board meeting. The November 8th board meeting would be the review date, and then the April 11th would be the review date as well. So each one has different guidelines. It's very similar to our title, like Title I and Title IV, Title II money. Pretty similar to that. The only difference was with some of them. I'll just share with you at the very bottom. I put those links in for you guys too if you wanted to take a look at them. So the only thing that I did is for ESSER 1, so the CARES money. They have everything that's color coded are the different areas that money can be allocated to or put in or spent toward. So they give you those different scenarios, and then when we spend it, we have to put it in there, like Lori put it in that certain area. So we spent, the majority of ours was addressing long-term school closures, so we put 72,414. That all of that money really was our virtual learning or our virtual Edgenuity. That was just a portion of our Edgenuity costs. So that first semester I think was about 80,000, and then second semester we thought was going to be a little bit more, but then we had some students that came back, some that left. So I'm not sure what off the top of my head. What do you know, Lori? Sorry.
It was about 10.
10,000 for semester 2. So, right around the 90,000 is what the total cost for the Edgenuity was. Then the rest, we about 10% of it, that's $7,000, almost $8,000. That's really just kind of response to COVID. The plexiglass, cleaning supplies, kind of the main stuff, but that's just that was just a leftover of the 80,000. So we spent more than 7,000, more than that, almost 8,000 on, COVID related, things like masks for staff. We purchased some masks for athletics, a lot of cleaning supplies, like I said, the plexiglass. We had some increase in staffing with the virtual learning coordinator and extra bus routes. So there were a handful of things that were spent. Some of that money, I don't want to say that.
Yeah, you do.
Will that be ESSER 2?
Yeah.
So some of that will be quoted to ESSER 2 money, so
Yeah.
that will fall into the ESSER 2. But it's hard to have a plan, when you're not exactly sure what, we don't know how many, what our bills, what we're gonna spend for Edgenuity. But if I had to guess, most of our plan will again fall into those two, response to COVID here, and then the long-term school closure. I don't, at this point, I don't see a huge need for educational technology, but we might if we need to. After we had summer learning and mental health services. So right now, the only thing that we really have in this plan is that how the CARES money, CARES or ESSER fund was spent. So right now is community input or board input as far as spending of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. So the intention of putting this on the board agenda is just to hear if anyone has any input that they would like to provide, either community members or board input.
How's the kitchen doing with the extra meals that they had to prepare and individually package everything and handing out meals? I mean, how did we come out budget-wise for kitchen? Because that really changed how they served and...
Yeah, we received, because of I can't remember what that was called, but the free
Yeah,
breakfast and
right.
lunch, there's a lot of money
Okay.
that was the 50, that we came out on the plus side for that, but we increased some staffing, just for preparing stuff. We even allocated.
Her wages are going to the ESSER 2.
Say again?
Her wages are going to the ESSER 2 funds.
Yeah. So you're asking as far as how is Fund 50?
Right, I'm just saying, that's one area that I assumed we spent some more money than normal. Can any of that go into the ESSER? And you're saying yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, some of
Some
it
of it
did, yeah.
did.
Or will.
Mhm.
Yeah. So thoughts, input, how it should be spent.
See when it comes, right? And then we can figure out.
Mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spend a bunch there. I think we leave that up to you, Josh. See how it plays out.
Okay.
Just keep us posted, I guess.
Are you guys good with asking community here? I know we have 3 teachers and 1 community member.
Yeah.
Any input?
It's you too, Josh.
I think honestly, the mental health part, if we have some money, might not be a bad part, but we need to make sure that it's actually servicing the kiddos. It's a big concern.
Yeah.
Big concern of mine, having older kids with the friends and hearing things going on, and you would be very surprised at how many kiddos contemplated suicide that you would never think that they would ever do that. And they did this year, so I don't know, something to think about.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, how do you think that would look? Some lyceums, just a lot of energy towards?
I don't know. That's the hard part about it.
It'd almost have to be smaller groups, like maybe during a wrap time, where you have discussions, it has to be a close group of people. The big assemblies, the kids are all looking around like, well, who's listening, who's watching, and they don't want to be embarrassed or, there's a stigma with mental health. So it's almost a smaller group, more often thing that should happen. and I know our counselors might be stretched thin. It says there's continued staff employment. I don't know if that means you can hire more staff with that money?
You can, it's, you know, there's a spot for it, it's not sustainable, obviously, you know, so this is the money. But if we did want to explore something where it was a short-term hire, we
We're
certainly
gonna do contact tracing if we have to do that.
yeah. I mean, we certainly can do that,
Yeah, but a counselor or something like that, yeah, gonna kill two birds with one stone.
sure.
It could be shared between both buildings, and that would be their big focus. And staff mental health as well.
Yeah.
So it's 3 years that we could potentially do some staffing for it. If we're looking at the 23 that it goes through.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's good input.
Anything else? Okay. Like I said, it'll be on the November 8th and then the April 11th board meeting as well, just for review. All right.
Yeah.
So this one needs action taken to
All
approve.
right,
as
I'll
well.
entertain a motion then.
I move to approve the 21-22 ESSER fund plan.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second to approve the ESSER fund plan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item of business is the Clear Lake Physical Therapy contract.
Okay, so I included the 21-22 contract for you guys. Not a whole lot of change on that one.
I'll entertain a motion then.
I move to approve the 21-22 Clear Lake physical therapy contract.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the physical therapy contract. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And Ryan abstained. Okay.
No.
Next item of business is the transportation handbook.
Okay, so the handbook's in there, no changes other than dates and then a few names just to reflect what we're doing with staffing. Let me get to it. So we're
So we need one more driver?
no, so we're moving back down to so we'll have a total of 8 drivers this year, which is what we, and that includes our bus 1 sped bus. So that reflects what we did before last year. So last year we added an additional bus to do the town kids. So we're moving back to the kind of normal or traditional number of buses that we had. So you'll notice that the one that's highlighted that has question marks in the bus lineup, that individual will most likely be employed with the district, but isn't currently at this point.
I move to approve the 21-22 transportation handbook.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the transportation handbook. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? One question on the bus driver list. Did we have any that have left us from last year?
Yep, so we had 2 retirements, Doug Miller and Dale Wood.
Okay. All right, next item of business is the employee teacher handbook.
Okay, so we do, I didn't print that off in there. I have some hard copies here if you guys want to look. I just made a couple in case you wanted it. But so there's date changes and then there's some significant changes too. But all of the changes you guys have already approved. So the teacher compensation planning meeting that we went through, some of that is in here with the sick leave language, the personal leave. You guys approved that in through that process. So that was just copy and pasted and put in here. So page 6 we have And I sent this to you digitally, but there was one small change that I added to it. So the sick leave is some of that is new. And then the personal leave language is also new. And other than that, it's dates, changes, and personal leave. So no other major changes other than that.
All right, I'll entertain a motion then.
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the employee teacher handbook for 21-22. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next handbook is the employee support staff.
And I did mention, or I did want to mention, just in case you didn't notice, but there was some of that COVID language from last year that we had put into the handbook. That was, so the documents that I sent you that didn't have that in those handbooks, that was also taken out. So I don't think they were in here. The other stuff, or they weren't left, right? Everything else was left, and there was just a strike through. But that was taken out. Okay, so then the support staff handbook language. Lori, feel free to hop in if you have anything that you want to say, but we're changing a couple things. The dates have changed, and then some of the language to reflect like the spring break language, and then the pay period language. We made some changes. So we surveyed the support staff and asked if they, who was in favor, who wasn't in favor of annualized pay period for the 12-month employees, and then employees that were on a 24-hour pay period cycle, and then a 12-month pay period cycle. So they'd be to spread out their pay, so there was no time, like if during the week of spring break and Christmas, rather than having no pay during that period, it would take their whole pay and average it out and then spread it out over the whole pay period. Did I articulate that all right?
Yeah, so they're just gonna have it spread out from September to June, then they don't have those ups and downs. And if they want to then do it from July to August also, I will do that too, and they get to decide which one they want. That helps them budget, and then it's not the up and downs.
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's one other main change. So we talked about this. This was a while ago, but so right now we have the vacation language. It's all 260-day employees are entitled to the paid vacations, and then it breaks down how many years they've been in the district, and then that reflects how many days they get per year for their vacation time. So I added one sentence in here. This pertains to anybody that works between 240 days and 259 days. So that period, they'd be entitled to 4 paid vacation days during each employment year. So they're not put on that cycle, but they do get 4 vacation days every year. Does that make sense? So if you guys remember, we had a specific employee kind of request that, and they were kind of in that no man's land for that period. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That and
Just the holiday.
the holidays, which that kind of, so we had 2 days, 2 half days?
So we lost, because of spring break, we lost Easter Monday for those of us that work year round. So then we just, New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve were half days, so we just made those full days to be paid.
So that way they weren't compromised in the process.
So we didn't lose a day of holiday. Does that make sense?
Am I missing anything, Lori?
I think that's it.
I think that's it too. So,
Okay. I'll entertain a motion then for the support staff handbook.
Move to approve the employees support staff handbook.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the support staff handbook. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the elementary student parent handbook.
okay. So I have the 2 elementary handbooks. Mr. Peterson is going to be presenting on those too. These 2 are your copies.
Okay. Both that for me.
Yep. I just did 4 copies.
Actually, and I brought one too, so if you guys want to share, where I've got. Here's one that can be used too. Who didn't get one?
I couldn't find it there.
Very few, really not very much substance, just a few items I'll highlight and point out. Names and dates are updated, of course. On the front page, there's a disclaimer we had on there last year, and I also added it for this year for the 2021-22 school year. Specific policies or procedures in this handbook may be overridden by the existence of temporary plans put in place by the, basically saying, we have a COVID plan that may override some of the policies that are in here. Again, some names and dates flashing ahead here. Just to highlight any changes, page 19. This is just one of the examples of last year with some of the changes that we had in place for COVID. An example here is the playground. So we had grades divided up on the playground, and we found that it worked really well, and we had a reduction in our playground discipline issues. And so we talked about it in April and May at our staff meetings about some of the things that we'd like to keep and some of the things we would like to go back to normal. But there was definitely, and I'm very much in favor of keeping this, so just making it our typical policy now. And years ago it was that way. We've been the way we've been for several years, but we're going to have grade levels staying in different zones on the playground. Any questions about that or comments? And they move around, so they all get a chance to try different parts of the playground. So every day they get to move. So it's not like one grade gets to have the monkey bars the whole year or anything like that. So on page 20 under food service, yes.
Do they move around each day?
Each day. So for the full day they're in one spot, and the next day they go to a new spot. So they have multiple recesses in a day, but it's every day.
Do we have a need for some different equipment like that? Is that bocce ball? I know my son loves playing that. So.
We're in good shape. We could. I think last year they did really well with. We've done quite a bit in the last 5-7 years for the actual climbing equipment and stuff like that. We're in really good shape, and we've upgraded stuff over the years. We've upgraded our basketball hoops. I'd say the group that's out in the field probably they have to be the most creative, but they play a lot of games with balls. They're playing soccer. They're playing different things, and honestly, some of that creativity that's forced upon them isn't such a bad thing all the time. So we're always open to getting more new things, but we're in pretty good shape as far as big equipment. I think. We always listen to. The staff will have input, or PTO. Marcy's here. PTO has purchased things, smaller items and big items over the years. So we're in pretty good shape, really, in both playgrounds. So good question. Anything else with that part? With the food service, just again a note in there that we have free breakfast and lunch again this year, so everyone is aware of that. On page 30, the high school, if you recall back in May, did some tweaking to its mobile phone use policy. We're not changing ours, but I just changed some of the language, and actually I have more of that highlighted than should be, because most of that language isn't changed, but just something like the first sentence or two, it still had language in there about laser pointers and pagers and stuff, which are pretty much obsolete words to have in there. So basically just clean up the language to make it match, or not, make sure there's nothing that didn't match the high school. Still is the same procedures and policies for elementary kids that we discourage elementary kids from bringing phones or devices to school, but if they do, some families do have kids that do have phones or use them after school for contacting parents, but they're not to be seen or heard during the school day, and we manage that. So it's no change in what we're doing. So, but just change the language. Other than that, those are the only real policy. The rest of it's names and dates and things like that. Any questions or anything else you see? Otherwise, I would
I
appreciate
move to
your.
approve the elementary student handbook.
Second.
Parent.
Thank you, Chris. It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the student parent elementary handbook. All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed. Motion passes. Next item of business is the elementary staff building handbook.
Yeah, so this is just like our operations for the year, and again, very few changes. I'll just highlight a couple things. Again, I've got the disclaimer on the front about the COVID plan, which could override some of the policies in your, oops, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Burns. When you get to page 8, one thing that's different in there, and again, we talked about this as a staff last spring, but on page 8, it talks about the teacher workday, so we're doing a new thing this year on Thursdays from 7:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. We will have our staff coming in every week on Thursdays to do collaborative meetings, team meetings, and they came out of talking with our PLC leadership team. We talked about different options and different times, different lengths of time, and we're gonna work with this right now. So half hour every week, and then what that means then is that, and we talked about it as an admin team last spring, but that we would end the workday at 3:30. Then they're coming in at 7:30, so instead of 8 to 4, they would work 7:30 to 3:30 on Thursdays. So the reason for Thursdays was due to the idea that there's no athletic events or coaching on Wednesday nights, so we don't have coaches or staff members who have a late bus home from Northwoods or something and then have to be there early the next day, and having it later in the week made sense. So that's really, that language is highlighted on page 8 is all about that. Any questions on that?
Is that in lieu of what was the old, how did you get that time before, Chris?
Well, we still have monthly faculty meetings on the third Wednesday, but what we've done the last 2 years is we tried to have, the different grade level teams would set their time based on when the three of them, if they had some common prep time, or if they would say we're going to meet after school or before school, and we just found it didn't work very well for consistency, because things would come up and it was hard to manage it that way. So we feel like this will be better. So this is something we're going to try this year.
Cool.
Page 14, this is another example of just our bus dismissal procedures. Just again, a change we made last year with how we get kids out to the buses at the end of the day, and we decided we really like it, so we want to keep it, so we're making it permanent. But we switched from having teachers having rotating bus duties. Every teacher just walked their own class out every single day, and it just was smooth and easy and worked really well, so we're just going to continue doing that.
So there is some positive things.
Absolutely. Lots of them, really. And, we think about the gains that staff have made, students have made, and their ability to, be resourceful and use technology, there's certainly a lot of things that were forced upon us, but that were probably going to be good for us in the long run. So those are really the only two any kind of changes into that. So I would submit that for your approval.
Thank you, Chris. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the elementary staff building handbook.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the elementary staff building handbook. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, this is our turn with Mr. Milberg.
As Chris mentioned earlier, the student handbook for the junior senior high, I think, was approved at the May board meeting or April board meeting, because there's some changes that Nick had made. So that's why there's only the staff handbook for tonight. Just a few minor changes. Much like Chris, I kept the note on the front of it, just to make sure if we needed to change some things on the fly due to the pandemic that we could do so. Other than that, it's names and dates that are changed. The only other one you'll note on page 4, I just changed the language of the faculty meeting part. It was a set time and date in there, and I just wanted to have the chance to be a little bit more flexible if we needed to be. So I took that out, made note that there'll be plenty of notice for staff before meetings, unless it's an emergency meeting, obviously. But if there was a month where we didn't have a meeting, that was okay. If there was a month that we potentially would need to double up, that would be okay. So that's the only significant change. Any other changes that happen, I'll figure out with my staff this year, and we'll make those changes for next year as I learn.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Milberg. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the junior senior high staff budget.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve our junior senior high school building handbook. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item of business is approval of the 21-22 student technology responsible use policy.
Okay, so that is actually in your board book, almost at the very, right before the policies at the end. So this was, last school year, we had a handful of teachers on the technology committee, led by Mrs. Meyer, and looked through the RUP, the responsible use policy, and updated. Actually, we combined, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but feel free to hop in, Ms. Meyer, but we combined two documents. Fellas, help me out with the
So we had,
One-to-one technology.
one-to-one and then the RUP. So rather than having two documents, we combined those two into one. So a lot of the language is similar. Some of the language was revised, but it's one document for the student technology responsible use policy. And then we talked through like what we were actually doing for discipline for violations versus what was previously in our policy, and kind of revise that a little bit as well. So, did you guys have anything you wanted to add?
yeah, I think, you know, last year things were flying fast and furious over the summer because we were trying to respond to
Everything?
needs. You know, all of a sudden we created a take-home policy for elementary kids, which we never had, so, you know, it was just like we had kind of 3 documents, and we just, and again, Mrs. Meyer and Mr. Osmond got it started, and then the technology committee had input, but basically just kind of merging them all together, cleaning up the language, making it make more sense. And then, yeah, what we discovered is that, you know, the language that was in there about the responses to violations was really getting outdated, because, you know, the old language would have things like you know, it was back when you go to computer labs on an occasional basis, and if someone had a violation, there were different levels to it, which we still have, but it was, the penalties were, you know, the first offense you were off for, like, you know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and the second offense you were out for the quarter, and the third offense well, it's just not realistic anymore. The kids are using their own devices, they have them every day. It just wouldn't make sense educationally. And then also we have a lot more security software on the devices, so it's just a lot easier to monitor, so we can feel like we can still keep them safe, but yet, you know, and yet, you know, we still have enough teeth into it. If a student does a really severe violation or continues to violate, you know, we can still respond appropriately, I think.
So rather than removing the device from the student, you know, a lot of the violation, the consequences are now locking down the system, their device, so they can't access certain things within their Chromebook, which we've done in the past. But that's the new document. I do want to thank Ms. Meyer and Mr. Osmond, because we wouldn't have probably done this without them continuing to keep it on the forefront to fix.
Or they hold up pretty good, them Chromebooks?
Yeah, they do. I mean, they can definitely take a beating, but they're for the cost, they're exactly what we need.
Well, thank you for those who helped put that together. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 21-22 student technology response user policy.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the technology responsible use policy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the presentation of the budget.
Okay, so I'll just throw this out there. Do you guys want to do this tonight, or we can table it till the annual meeting? But I'll just kind of share with you what it is, and then you can decide. So I just created a budget presentation that breaks down kind of what the numbers are going to be for the annual meeting, and then also just kind of some key terms and stuff. So we could either do this now, or we could do it at the annual meeting for all to hear. It's up to you guys. My intention was kind of give you a little bit of background prior to the annual meeting, but it does not matter one bit to me.
Give us the short version.
Give us a short version of this.
That was the short version.
It works so hard.
So you guys will have access, or you have access to this as well. So what I did is, so just some of the key terms that are used for the Wisconsin budget system. The Wisconsin budget system is just a crazy complex system. So it just kind of breaks down some of or lists some of the key terms that are used. And I have a link in here for the Department of Public Instruction for the state and federal aid, so you can actually look into it and dig into it even more if you want. Gave just a quick budget cycle for the fiscal year, kind of the timeline as far as what are these are just the main reports that we submit each year, just for you guys to see, most of which you guys, or some of which you approve and some aren't approved, but the board president assigns them, so they're coming to the board meeting. But the majority of these ones are board approved. Then just the different type of sources for revenue for school districts, state aid, property tax, federal aid, and then other local non-property tax. The bottom here is just kind of an average. This was taken in 16-17, what the average school districts across the state. There's 421 school districts in the state, 46% state aid, 42% property taxes, federal aid is 7.2, and then local revenue 4.5. These are the different funds that districts can have. So it just lists what they are. I gave you a link to it's called the Woofer account, the Wisconsin Uniform Financial Accounting Requirements. And then these are the actual funds specific to Clear Lake. So we have Fund 10, Fund 21, 27, 38, 39, 46, 50, 60, and 80. Okay, so these are the numbers that are going to be presented at the annual meeting. The state, what we have for state revenue, we're just a little bit over $6 million, which is 81% of our budget this year. The local amount is $870, almost $900,000. That's about 12% of our budget. Federal is $174,000. I do want to say this does not include ESSER money. That would have just thrown us all out of whack. So I left, and even for the annual meeting, I have that number at 0. So it's not in the budget. Otherwise, we'd have an extra, a little over $1 million for federal dollars. So it kind of throw everything off. Just explains Fund 21 what it is, our activities account. Fund 27 is our special ed account, so that's $990,000. That's going to be the revenue out of the special ed account. 38 and 39 for Clear Lake, it's a little different. When we talk about Fund 38 and 39, it kind of seems like they're both referendum, but actually 38 is non-referendum, so it's energy efficient fund, and then Fund 39 is referendum. The year that we did Fund 38 and 39 was the last year that those two could be rolled together, so it kind of seems like it's just referendum money, but it's actually two different funds. So right now we have, and those are the two that we did the refinancing for. So we're approximately 5 to 10% of the budget is Fund 38. It's $541,000 of our almost $11 million budget is Fund 38. Fund 39, we're going to do it a little different this year. So Fund 39 is the actual referendum dollars or referendum fund. So that usually it's about 10 to 15%. We're gonna our revenue is it's going to be $993,000. We're going to over levy for the Fund 39 to try to keep our mill rate consistent with what it's been. So our mill rate is dropping. Could potentially drop quite a bit, but with this, unfortunately we can't shift that into our Fund 10 and allocate it toward salaries like we want to. So it's stuck in this fund, so there's no flexibility with that, but we do have flexibility with how much we can, I'm sorry, not levy, but how much we can, it would be levy, but we're going to prepay our Fund 39. So ultimately we're saving taxpayer dollars with prepaying, and it's keeping our mill rate more consistent with what it's been, but it's still going to go lower. I think it's $9 for. We'll get to that. But anyway, that's why the significant change was Fund 39. I met with Baird and we talked through, what are our options for keeping the mill rate more consistent, and this was our best option because ultimately it's going to save tax dollar money in the long run. It doesn't penalize us for budgeting in future years, and like I said, it keeps the mill rate consistent. It also provides a little bit of if you guys approve this at the annual meeting, then if we do get in a scenario where a mill rate is getting too high, we can remove some of this money in the future, so we don't have to prepay as much to drop that mill rate back down to that right around the $9 to $10 range is what we've been consistently keeping it at.
On that last slide, Josh,
This one?
no, the last one. I just wanted to question the date on there, 1993. Is that right? Should that be 1993 or 2003?
have been when they built the new school.
No, this is fun, this isn't specific to Clear Lake.
Oh,
This
Oh.
is,
That's when they,
That was
that's
when
when they
the
made Fund 38?
yeah,
Oh, I was gonna say, because
Yep.
I wasn't on the board in 1993 when we used Fund 38 for Chris's Palace over there.
yeah, so that, no, that's not specific to Clear Lake.
Okay.
Okay, so then Fund 39, so then Fund 46 is the, like I've called it or referred to it as kind of the safety blanket. You guys approved that in June 26th of 2017, so that is specific to Clear Lake. Right now, we have 1.5 million in the Fund 46, so that's going to allow us to really look at purchasing or doing the roof in this building. And so we're going to start the bidding process to try to get that moving because now we can access that money. So if you recall in 2017 when we did that, you guys created this fund and then you couldn't access that money for 5 years. We had to create a plan, which I linked that plan for you guys in here. It's just, I can show you if you want. I made it look a little nicer just for this presentation, but it ultimately was this exact same grid. I just put it on a nicer looking document. So as you can see, it's not even close to what we had projected. With COVID and the kind of the last 2 years, we've been able to put more than we thought into Fund 46. But the intention behind Fund 46 was two things. One, to create a fund that we could start saving money. So when we went to referendum, we could say we've done our due diligence to save money for the roof for this building. And then two, if you remember with the Wisconsin budgeting system, if you underspend or overspend, either or, so it's not like a normal personal safety account or savings account, I'm sorry. If you underspend or if you overspend, either way you're penalized for the following budgeting cycle. So it's you get negatively impacted.
Did we use any of that fund for HVAC stuff in this building this year?
No, so we did use some ESSER 2 money is going to be allocated, so we were able to make the HVAC in this connected to COVID because they've talked about the airflow was really a hot topic at the very beginning. So we're allocating ESSER 2 money to the HVAC in this, and they've started that already, and I think it should be done by fall is what they're saying.
So prior to that becoming available for that, Josh, we were talking about taking it out of
Yeah.
that fund. Okay, that's.
We knew that was the roof and the HVAC system in this building needed to be addressed in the future. So those were the two, at the very beginning when we were talking about Fund 46, those were the two topics. Now HVAC is no longer part of that conversation. Okay, so then we have Fund 50, and that approximately $587,900, which is about 4 to 6% of our budget, or overall budget of the $10.7 million. Fund 60 is a scholarship fund. It previously was Fund 72, correct, Lori? Yep. So we made that move when DPI gave some more guidance on where that should actually be. That's really just money in, money out. So that's not part of our budgeting cycle. And then Fund 80 is the last one. That's the community service, which is the 80,000 of the 10.7. So it's about 0.5. I think that's actually it's like 0.6% of our budget right now. So overall, total revenues. I have the revenue on the middle column, so that it totals 10.7 million. It's a little higher than last year just because in previous budgets I hadn't included the Fund 21 into that calculation. So our total budget is actually 10.7 million. Then the expenditures, it's a little more on the expense side for this budgeting cycle. It's the 11.1 million. So Fund 10 is just a hair over that 8 million. So then that brings us to the levies, the property tax levy. Fund 10, Fund 38, 39, and 80. Those are the funds that we have the ability to levy. These are the numbers, total numbers for levying. So total property tax levy will be 2.4, just a little bit over 2.4 million this year. So for mill rate, Mill rate is based off of per $100,000. That puts us at, like I said, the tax levy was that number that I just said, the 2.4 million, and that brings us to $9.43 for our mill rate for this year. So as you've seen, most people I think are checked out at the annual meeting until we tell them what the mill rate is. So that's a good thing. We're lower than years past. So you can see last year it was $9.45. Then to $10.14, kind of. So we always try to keep it in that, like I said, just right around that $9 to $10 range. We saw last year, this is the only thing that we have control over, but the property value, that does impact it too, and that could have a significant impact on it, but I'm fairly confident this is where we'll be at. So this is all, again, I'll go over this at the annual meeting. I'll give you the final, or that preliminary budget, but I have it in a nicer looking annual meeting document. And like we say every year, the final numbers come in October. So this is just really a guessing game for the most part, but it's based off of, the information that we have.
Do you remember this last year when when we had talked, I had mentioned that I had some citizens that came and talked about the fact that their taxes had all gone up?
Yep.
I don't remember the full conversation or even what the conclusion was, but do you have that addressed in your mill rate talk, Josh, just in case they show up and ask that same question?
Yeah, I based it off of this is all based off of a 1% property value increase. So we don't have control over the property value, and I think it's a 3-year average of not what residents have gone in and had their property assessed at, but the state has a process that they use, and if that goes up, then that ultimately impacts, that's that variable that the district doesn't have control over. So ours is just based off of our numbers. So that certainly could go up as far as the actual dollar amount that taxpayers are paying for their own property. But I met with Baird. They even to go through this, and they feel like this is a pretty good, our best guess that we have with the information that we have. So it's based off 1% increase. The governor's budget is no increase on the per pupil, so that's also reflected in here. And then I didn't include the ESSER fund. So to answer your question, that's still a variable out there, but it's not a variable that we have control over.
So we set the mill rate at the meeting.
Yep.
And then when does the value come in? That comes
I believe
in
it's
later?
October 15th, the property, I think it's the same day that we get our numbers. So I think it's October 15th.
Okay.
And then I threw in a bunch of links there for you too. Some are the same links from throughout the presentation, but if you guys wanted to, I don't know if I'd recommend it, but you can certainly access those websites and look through if you have any, if you want to. So, sound good? So just kind of the bare bones of where we're at, but the numbers reflect what they're going to be at the annual meeting. So if you wanted to take a look through, if you were, if you had a question on a key term or something that's been discussed in the past, most of that, I think all of it is either in the presentation or in some of the links. Okay.
Ready to move on now?
Yep.
All right, thanks, Josh. Next one is approval of our school board policies. The first one is 167.1, voting.
Okay. I have 3 policies in here for you guys to review and take a look at. Voting is the first one, so if you want to read through it quick and then talk through it.
guys all
The
good?
abstain thing.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna do them all, one at a time?
I'll entertain a motion to approve 167.
I move to approve.
Second.
We probably moved to approve Board 167.1 voting. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, Board Policies 167.2, closed session.
So closed sessions is, as you can see, it's pretty, you know, governed by state statute. I guess what I'm trying to say is probably shouldn't recommend changing much.
I move to approve the closed session.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve closed session 167.2. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next one is 167.3, public comment at board meetings.
And this one I do have a recommendation. I'm just considering, or proposing that you guys consider changing letter E in, under public comment section, that each statement by participant shall be limited to 5 minutes of duration. My recommendation is that we move that from 5 to 3, just, you know, for time's sake. If we have another meeting, hopefully we won't, but if we run into a situation where we have a meeting similar like the mask situation, we have a handful of people that want to talk, we could be here a very long time. So I think 3 minutes is plenty of time to kind of convey your concerns.
So the heading above that, Josh, is the presiding officer, which would be the president, shall be guided by the following rules. Does that mean that he is stuck on that?
I was gonna say, that's what if they're
The only reason I ask is-
inappropriate or something, to shut it down quicker than 5 minutes, I guess. Well, or altogether.
I think that's addressed in there too.
Is it? Maybe it is.
What's,
If a speaker is inappropriate, you can shut them down. It's on
Oh.
the second page.
Yeah, number
Okay.
1-1 and 1-2.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
All right, yep, that, Yep, so item number 5 would then give the president or the presiding officer the levity to go ahead and change that from 3 to 5 to whatever, I guess, anyway, wouldn't, am I reading that correctly?
I think so.
And I think that's a power that the president needs to have in certain situations, like you're talking about, Josh, when you want to limit it a little bit more, if we've got 50 people that want to speak, so.
so you mean in a specific meeting, if you limit everyone to 3 minutes, you mean?
No, limit it to 3 minutes is a good idea, right?
Well, it may be.
No, but you could do it without,
So if we came
Without
to a
changing
meeting
it.
and all of a sudden there were 40 people signed up, he
Right.
could change it at that meeting to say, we're going to 3 minute
I
limit.
agree.
Okay.
All I'm concerned about is that whoever's president has the authority to change that on the fly. You know, if we've got somebody one person that needs to speak, they might need more than 3. Or if we've got 50 people that show up and we want to limit them to 3 minutes or 2 minutes or even 1 minute, that the president has that authority to do that.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I think,
You know what
I
I
think
mean?
you're right.
And I think number 5 provides for that.
Okay. So leave it as is,
With
you're
the
saying?
approval of the board, of course,
think-
too.
I think
right?
leave it.
Yeah, we can
that's
leave it
fine.
as is and.
Okay.
I move to approve the policy for public comment on board meeting.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the board policy 167.3, public comment at a board meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. Next time is our superintendent notes. Dr. Joshua Prince.
I just have a couple things to share. It's feeling real. Like schools are right around the corner here. We mailed out. I gave you guys the envelopes. Those are going out to staff here in the near future. Getting mailed out there. The letters, all the in-service plans. Then I emailed the families, the welcome back families with the parent FAQ, which you guys all received. But I gave you a hard copy here as well. So that's school's right around the corner. We have the sport, football started, and then volleyball and cross country are right around the corner here. I believe next week they begin. So it is definitely feeling, real. And then the nice thing that also we've been doing, in-person stuff has begun too outside of our district. So we had, like this afternoon, the three of us, the admin team, were at a legal conference that CISA put on. That was very well done. Then I had went to a legal conference as well that was put on by WASDA. It was extremely interesting and beneficial. Now I think it was the most ever attended as far as in person. So we're starting to have that. And then we hosted in person PLC workshop where we did. Unfortunately it was recorded, so we couldn't go to Minneapolis. So the PLC conference at Professional Learning Communities, we've been sending staff to every year in Minneapolis, and we've been committed as a district. So that's the standards work, the aligning identifying all of our essential standards, and what it's actually being taught in the classroom. So this is year 3, but it just is one of those things that has been every curveball has been thrown at that process. So initially we had Chris Stratton from CISA come in, and there were some health issues where that was put on hold. We started that process, identifying the essential standards, then we started unpacking all those, and COVID hit, so it came to a screeching halt, and we were just in survival mode. Then we met with CISA again to have an individual come during in-service and provide some training again and start that process up again, and now it looks like that's going to, we're going to have to put a halt on that, but we're still going to be moving forward with it. We're just not sure how we're going to do that. But anyway, we brought in about 15 staff, teachers that came in, and we had these pre-recorded PLC presentations that they did. It was very well done, considering it was recorded and it wasn't in person. Obviously, there's something about that in-person piece that you get, but I thought it was very beneficial and it was good stuff. So I guess my point is we're starting to see more in-person stuff happening outside of the district too, but then on the flip side, you're also hearing things in the news and as far as the uptick and different variants and all of that. So I'm confident that we'll be opening up in 21-22 and rolling out the school year just like we had planned, but we're also going to proceed with caution and keep listening to what's being shared with us as far as the information that's being provided to us. I think that was the last thing. I shared the FAQ with you. Oh, I did want to say that unfortunately the circus didn't come, which you guys are obviously aware of, but that we had planned to have the circus here on site, and working with the Clear Lake Community Business Council, but something happened on the circus's end where they weren't able to come. So would have been fun, but it is what it is. Maybe next year. So that's it. I do want to say too, we have with sports starting, some of the junior high stuff. We're still in the process of identifying junior high volleyball coaches and dance coaches for that. So hopefully by the end of this week we'll have that all finalized, and that will be in place, and we won't have any have to postpone anything or any of the season. So we're hopeful that that'll be happening. And then we just have two positions that are still hanging out there. The music position that we're in the process of hiring and filling, and then the admin assistant position closed, and we're interviewing for that on Wednesday.
I'm interviewing for paras.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, para position at the elementary that we have too, that you guys have just approved that resignation. And that interview process is
Later this week.
Okay.
Music, you said not a lot of interest?
There's some interest. is good. So we're going to talk tomorrow. Today, there wasn't a whole lot of time to discuss. We're originally going to plan on talking about that today during our legal conference, but we're going to talk about that tomorrow and possibly have a plan in place. So,
Athletic director, is that gonna kind of be divvied up with this admin position?
yep. So when we had talked about the admin assistant position, we talked about having that individual, do a lot of the secretarial type stuff, and then have the AD kind of function, fall more on Mr. Malberg if there's and then myself too if there's a violation of code and some of that. So right now we just wanted to try to see who the candidates were and then identify a candidate and then based off that come up with a game plan on what are their skills, do they have any knowledge with athletics, and then kind of move forward with identifying what then everybody's roles were going to be this year with that. So yeah, it's been definitely an interesting kind of whirlwind of a start here, and the school year hasn't started, but just with the hiring process and people coming and going. I do, at my the legal conference, we are Clear Lake is far from unique in this situation. This has been the most turnover, I think, than in any other year for Wisconsin. For admin positions, especially in the principal position, the most new to the position than any other year. Not the most people in the position, but the most brand new, so teachers moving into administrator roles, and then the most non-renewals in Wisconsin history, and the most board recalls, I believe, in Wisconsin, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, this has been and continues to be an emotionally and politically charged environment, and unfortunately, we thought it was going to kind of end with the mask, but we've got, other stuff that has surfaced, and I think we just are lucky to be in Clear Lake because we're not having as much of that type of stuff happening that everyone else is dealing with. And like I said, I do think that variable is that these are our children, not just our students. So, you go to the conference and the attorneys are presenting on obviously the stuff that you'd expect to be presented on, but then you just feel for some of these other, the colleagues that I talked to with just the stuff that they're dealing with across the state wouldn't be easy to deal with. So, and I think honestly, I really believe this, that our students are the ones that are benefiting from it the most, that we're in a functional district and we're doing a nice job trying to make decisions that are in the best interests of kids with the information that we have, and our kids get to benefit from it. So, and then like I said before, I do mean this. It's not just the board; it's from every position in the district, from board, para, teachers, admin, all the way through to our parents as well. So, all right, that's all I had for report note.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ernst, Dr. Ernst. The next item of business is our contemplated closed session in accordance with 2 WSS 19.85, paragraph 1C, concerning employment compensation, performance data of any public employer over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. We will be reviewing employee performance. And I will poll the board. Ryan?
Yes.
Skip?
Yep.
Nettie?
Yes.
Myself, yes. We are in closed session. We are back in open session. Future agenda items. Anybody have anything they want to see in the agenda next time? All right, then I will entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn. Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.